Shalom from Croatia. I'm in the city of Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, and this is a country that used to be part of Yugoslavia. It was a state, but part of Yugoslavia is a big country that once communism fell down, Yugoslavia fell apart, and Croatia became its own independent state, independent country. It's a beautiful place, but mostly with beautiful people who love to host, and also I met some believers that are amazing people. And I believe that the Lord is doing a great job here, a great work here, a great move of the Spirit here, mostly among Catholics, because this is a predominantly Catholic country. And apparently I heard a lot of testimonies about how many Catholics are becoming born again here in this place, which is beautiful. I'm sorry that yesterday I wasn't able to go live properly, but the internet connection didn't really work. Plus, I had some incident in the family that anyway would have caused me to stop the live broadcast and go to a doctor. So I'm glad I made it here in one piece, and I'm glad I'm able to share with you. There's several very important developments that happened in the last 3 days with Syria that I believe that every believer must know, must understand, and must put together with that which the Bible talks about. You know that for many months now, ever since I started doing the Facebook Lives, and of course for quite a few years now since I started teaching Bible prophecy in places around the world, I kept telling people that I believe that yes, the world scene is, and especially the Middle East, is getting ready for that which we know in Ezekiel 38 and 39, but it won't happen without the match that will start that fire. Because, we already have Russia, we already have Iran, and we already have Turkey. They're all inside Syria. So Syria is the actual key to the fulfillment of Ezekiel. And of course, the Bible says in Isaiah 46, the Bible says, I'm God and there is none like me. I'm God and there is no other, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient things that are not, from ancient times, things that are not yet done. So I believe that that which is not yet done is the destruction of Damascus. And the reason I mention that is because over the last few days, quite a few things happened that somehow I believe accelerate the path towards the destruction of Damascus. And I will start with the fact that the situation in Aleppo, we're moving now up north, northwest of Damascus. This is the largest city in Syria, not Damascus, but Aleppo. In Aleppo right now, what's going on is literally, I would say, extermination of civilian population. I don't have any other words. Ever since World War II, we have not seen sights like that. A civilian population of almost 300,000 people is trapped. The enclave of the rebels that was surrounded by Assad regime, Hezbollah, and Iranian soldiers, that enclave is now being cut off into two, which makes the life of the rebels even more difficult. And that cutting of that enclave into two is causing people not to be able to move from the north to the south anymore. And so the people, not only they don't have hospitals, they don't have medication, they don't have running water. Now they don't even have a place to run to. And the bombardment is becoming more and more intense. And let me say, there's something that the world is not talking about, but there is a daily dropping of chlorine. I'm talking about chemical warfare on top of the civilian population. I've seen more than one video describing or showing young people, children coming to clinics with some burns and some problems breathing because of chlorine. So the use of chemical weapon is almost on a daily basis, and the world says nothing. The bombardment of hospitals and clinics, people are just sitting there and mourning over dead ones, and the dead ones are not even dead because they got directly hit. It's because there's no medication and there's no treatment there that can really help them. So it's a really a horrific human tragedy right now in Aleppo, and the world is just doing nothing. The UN is now meeting, and there's meeting around the clock. They meet and meet, but they really do nothing. Now we're entering into winter. There's a cold front coming all the way now into Israel, but it continues into Syria, and that which will drop a significant amount of rain here will eventually get there. It's a very cold front. There is a first snow on Mount Hermon for this year that just fell just a few hours ago, and that same snow falls on the Hermon in Assyrian side. So you understand that these people are not only poor, being bombarded by the Russians, but they are now freezing to death. So this is a horrible situation, and the intensification of this whole thing is because the Russians want to finish with that fiasco for them. They can't drag it for too long. For the Russians, it costs much money, it costs much effort, and they didn't know that protecting their interests in Syria will cost them that much. We see that they want to do to Aleppo what they did to Grozny in Chechnya, destroy the whole place and then put a puppet to rule on their behalf. It's not working because in the Middle East, the Sunni and the Shiite, it's much deeper and it's much wilder than it is with Chechens and the Russians themselves. So I wanted to explain what happens there. Now, the Russian airplanes only fly during the day. They don't even know how to fly at night. They don't drop bombs at night. They don't take off at night. And that enables us, when we need to take care of business, that enables us to do what we need to do. And we don't bombard civilian population. We don't drop bombs on populated area. We just attacked a couple days ago 2 targets. One is a convoy carrying weapon, and I'll tell you in a second what type of weapon, that was on its way from Syria into Lebanon. And the other one is a storage of weapon right next to the airport in Damascus. Now we know that the Iranians have been smuggling weapons in civilian commercial flights, and of course it's a very smart move. We will never shoot down a commercial flight, but they've been bringing in the cargo compartment of the plane weapons and ammunition, and so we knew exactly where they put it. And all we needed to, now we have a problem. Flying in the skies of Syria right now is not easy for us because of the Russians. So what we did, we were flying above Lebanon to the actual border, and from there our aircrafts released several rockets that are precise and they're long range, and they did the job. And what we did, we destroyed that storage of weapon and we destroyed that convoy. Now we don't coordinate with the Russians every time we do something. We told them in advance in the meeting that Netanyahu had with Putin that there are several cases that Israel will not be able to sit and do nothing. And one of them is when the Hezbollah is about to acquire precise, sophisticated rockets that might hit our planes or might be a bad news for our cities and towns in case there's another conflict with them. So any advanced weapon system, I'm not talking about old missiles that we know we can shoot down easily, but anything that is super advanced, we will not allow it to get into their hands. And this is exactly what happened. And that brings me to the point of why Israel just 2 days ago, the cabinet just approved the purchase of 17 more F-35s, the stealth fighter jet. In all together, we already purchased 33. We're receiving the first ones in about 10 days from now. But so for to the 33, we added 17 more, and altogether Israel will have 50 F-35s, which is approximately 2 different squadrons. And why is it that we need it so desperately right now? It's because if in the past Israel was thinking about acquiring such a thing to attack Iran, we don't have to think about that anymore. Iran is already in Syria. Russia is now in Syria. And with all the sophisticated weapon systems that Russia brought to the area, Israel cannot use regular F-15s and F-16s anymore. Now, for the last few years, we've been attacking in places and we've been destroying weapons that were about to come to the wrong side and to the wrong hands. And let's put it this way. 90% of what we did, we never published, it never came to any public knowledge. But we could do that because we had superiority in the air. Right now, with the arrival of all these advanced weapons by the Russians, the S-300 and the S-400 weapons, anti-aircraft systems, Israel had to go stealth. And the arrival of the F-35s, of course, when they arrive, we put all of our weapon systems inside. This is the future of our being able to fight and to have, I would say, very quality reconnaissance without worrying about radar systems detecting us. That's the whole idea of the F-35s. Israel is taking the F-35 that we purchased from America, and we put all the avionics made in Israel. We put a lot of stuff that we cannot even talk about made in Israel in that aircraft, and it will be a great way to continue on the path of a very changing and evolving Middle East, ever since America is no longer here and Russia is the new guy around the block. About 5 days ago, there was another incident in the southern part of the Golan Heights where several terrorists that are affiliated with ISIS opened fire on Israeli soldiers, and Israel did not even hesitate. We are not going to allow ISIS to drag us into the Syrian civil war. We destroyed their outpost immediately, and the day after we destroyed several more, and we basically told them we will not even tolerate that. If you start something, we will immediately destroy anything and everything that is around that belongs to you. That's what we told ISIS, and of course, ever since it's quite calm and relaxed. Unfortunately, there's so many websites, some of them are related to Bible prophecy, that every time something happened, without checking the facts, they go online and report that something happened. And it's very important. I want to encourage you not to do that. I want to encourage you to check the facts first. The sirens went off 2 days ago on the Golan Heights, but it was just a false alarm. Nothing happened. And here I am. I get tons of emails and tons of text messages. We just read that Israel is attacked by rockets. No, Israel wasn't attacked by any rocket. It was a false alarm. And please do me a favor, check the facts before you post stuff like that. Because then when you really report something that is true, nobody will believe you anymore. So I would say let's not have easy hand on the pistol. But let's not shoot before we even think. It's important that we understand that if we want to sound reliable, if we want to be a reliable source of information, we need to change the fact. We need to, check the facts and do that. It's very important. I also want to tell you that Erdogan, of course, is getting very wild. He is threatening Europe to flood Europe with millions of refugees, and Europe is panicky right now. And B, Erdogan is also attacking in Syria. He wants to show that he's also relevant here. He did attack a ISIS outpost because ISIS kidnapped 2 of his soldiers. But he wants to show that he's also part of what's going on there, and you cannot look at him as an irrelevant factor over there. He doesn't want Iran to call the shots. He doesn't want a Shiite superiority in that which is going on in Syria. He wants also a stake in the Syrian bloodbath, I would say. And that is the tragic thing. You know, Syria, without wanting, became the glue of things that would have never, you know, not in a million years would come together to collaborate. You know, Iran and Russia and Turkey, they really have nothing in common. Russia wants to do business with everyone because they need money. Iran wants to spread the Shiite. Turkey wants to be the head of the Sunni world, and the caliphate should be back in their hand. And of course, they cannot stand the Kurdish expansion also. Everyone has his own issue, but in the tragic thing is Syria becomes the place where they playground for all of their games. And this is exactly why I want you to open your eyes and watch what's going on, because the more Israel will have to go and attack, the likelihood for Russians, Iranians, or Turkish to get hit is going higher. In fact, the attack of 2 days ago put the Russians in a very awkward position, because the media in Syria immediately reported that Israel attacked. And the Syrian government confirmed that Israel attacked. And by the way, Israel was flying above Lebanon and fire rockets. But still, it put the Russians in a very awkward position, because if they are the landlords in that area, if they are the superpower in that area, how come they allow such a thing to happen? On the other hand, they know that Israel is not attacking anything that, you know, is contradicting the Russian interest at this point. So Russia did not really react yet. Everybody is holding their breath to see what would be the reaction of the Kremlin to the Israeli attack of 2 days ago. And we see more and more things happening. Now I want to touch, last thing, I want to touch a point that we need to take in consideration. It seems like what's going on right now in the Arab world is much of it has to do with a growing dissatisfaction of the youth and the young people in the Arab world. And it's sort of a bubbling under the ground right now, and people are predicting another Arab Spring. Not that I believe that the first one was an Arab Spring, it was an Islamic winter, but people predict that we're going to have another wave, and it's going to be even way worse than the first one, because all throughout the Arab world we see that because of the prices of oil going so down, the governments don't have enough money to really subsidize things for the people, and the people are poor, and there's no jobs there, and there's no employment for so many of these people. And it's just a matter of time until things will explode. Now, they see that Islam is not the answer. They see already that in Islamic areas, ISIS is out of control, and they see what, you know, that's not what these people want. And this is exactly where I believe, you know, millions of young Muslims will be ripe for a new world religion. Something that, you know, the West will introduce from Western Europe, that they can feel connected with, that they can embrace also, and that can make them feel part of the rest of the world and not locked up in a small corrupt country. It's very interesting. Things are going on around the world in an amazing race, and amazing pace also. I wanted to update you about that, because it's important that we keep our eyes on Damascus. As I said, that which happened in the last few days is definitely an acceleration of the events. And I'm no longer just reporting about Russia attacking Aleppo and America and the Iraqis attacking Mosul. I'm talking about Israel attacking Damascus. And this is something that we have to keep our eyes open and to see what's going on around the world. The Lord is definitely working in so many places, in so many countries. I get to see that ever since I preached about how Europe is getting ready for the rise of the Antichrist, it stirred up quite a few countries, or at least believers in quite a few countries. I got an invitation to speak in Sweden, and an invitation to speak in Norway, in France. I get some invitations to speak in UK, in also in an invitation to speak in also in the Netherlands. God is doing amazing things right now, and I want you to keep praying for Europe, because that which is really the source of so much evil, God is working amongst the saints, and there's so many people that once they are exposed to the truth, they want to hold on to it. So please, I would like to continue praying that God will open more and more doors for me to be able to travel and share in Europe. It's very easy for me. It's a few hours flight, and I can do it over a short weekend and go back home. So keep praying for us for that thing. Next year, I'm going to go also to Japan and Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand. I'm going to go to Mexico, and I'm going to go to America and Canada. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we need your prayers. Please, if you are not yet, sign up for the newsletter that we send every week. Please do so on our on our Facebook page. Do the sign up, and you can leave your name and email address, and once a week we'll send you an email with everything in it. I also want to encourage you to subscribe on our YouTube channel, so you can always get alerts for new things that we post. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and of course on Instagram, Behold Israel, in all those cases. I've announced already on social media that I'm going to take next May a tour for young adults, and I really ask you to pray about that. The college age youth today, they're very confused, and they say that 70 to 80% of those people, once they go to college, that's it, they don't go back to church. And my prayer is that I will be able to get them to Israel and just give them the word and get them on fire and send them back home to whatever country they come from, and they're not only renewed spiritually, but also be able to speak out in a very bold way, because the universities and the campuses today are not only anti-Jesus, but they are anti-Israel, and they're anti-American, and also Western values. They become very socialist. They become very pro-Arab and I would even say communist, and it's quite alarming. Continue to pray for those of you who live in America, for Trump to get into the White House on January 20th. I'm telling you, the war is not over yet. The electors are getting life threats almost every day. You all know that only on December 19th, the electors will go and cast their ballots. That's when really the elections is going to take place. And there's a lot of pressure on them right now, a lot of pressure. This whole recount thing is also an effort to stir the pot, and I need you to understand that we don't fight against flesh and blood. We fight against powers and principalities. They're so angry at what happened on November 8th. They're so angry that the people have spoken, and they basically wants to cancel the people's decision. Somebody once said, I just read it, that if you take all the counties of America, if you divide America to all the counties, and there's about 3,000, let's say, of 800 counties, Trump won in 3,400 or 3,000 or 600. In other words, Hillary Clinton only won in 40 counties, but they're the most populated ones, of course. But if you take America, you cannot just look at three cities, Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles, and say that's America. And now everybody suddenly discovered this popular vote, which is baloney, because if it was always according to the popular vote, there's no point of campaigning in any other state. Just go to California, go to Chicago, and go to New York and campaign there if the popular vote matters. So obviously the system is not built like that. The system is not designed to be like that. The electorate system is about representing every part of the United States of America. Continue to pray. I want to encourage you. God is on the move. I want you to continue presenting yourself as a living sacrifice before the Lord. I want you to understand that in these last days, God is calling his children to be about his business. And he wants us to be taken as we do his business. That's what Matthew 24 is all about. So continue to be enthusiastic, and to the Bible says that when we talk about all these things of the end time, encourage one another. So maybe we talk about bad things that are coming, but we need to encourage one another, because we're not destined to the wrath of God, and we are going to be rescued out of this time of trouble, the trouble of Jacob, and we will not be here to go through all of that. But we need to get ready. And we're not preaching go and sleep and do nothing. We're preaching on actually work hard right now. We're preaching on get ready and get right with the Lord, and restore relationships with family, friends, and people around you, and just share the gospel in whatever capacity you can. This is the last hour of the last days. I want to encourage you to have your personal relationship with the Lord every day in prayer and reading, and just talk to him. God speaks in a small, silent voice, and it's only when we give him time to speak to us that we can really understand and see it. There's a lot of things I want to talk about, but it's too long right now, and we're going to do another Q&A in the next few weeks, where we'll accumulate questions from all of you from all around the world, and we will address each and one of them. Thank you. Shalom from Zagreb, Croatia. I love you all. God bless you, and shalom. Bye-bye.